Welcome to another episode of the Holistic Sister Circle. Today we have Melissa here with us. She is a certified life coach who founded her coaching business, Creative Girls Helping the World, to support empathetic and highly sensitive professionals and creative women. Melissa is an artist and empath herself, and in addition to her life coaching business, she also spent 20 years in the corporate world working in the areas of e-commerce, fashion, technology, and operations. She pulls from her corporate experience, coaching skills, and empathetic abilities to help her clients navigate their life and work, guiding them to embrace and share the unique gifts, build authentic lives they love, and to stay positive, productive, and profitable in the process. This is work that she's very passionate about and that is near and dear to her heart because she knows firsthand the struggles that her empath clients face. Helping them to lead happier, more authentic lives is a mission that she's proud of and can be called upon on. Melissa is currently based in the New York, New Jersey area where she lives with her husband and her daughter. This is so beautiful. I love that. I was like, "Oh, this is so amazing." And I'm so grateful that I have this time with you because to be honest, I didn't even know what an empath was. I had no idea that I even had those
Yeah,
strengths
abilities.
and abilities, and I
Yeah,
didn't know how to work them. I
yeah,
always felt like when people would share things with me, it was natural to just hold on to other people's emotions. Like I had no idea there was a name for it.
yeah.
So, for us to start off, I would love for you to just share what is an empath and how did you decide or did you know that you were one?
True. Yeah, absolutely. I know. Because there hasn't always been that term out there either. So I think we've heard here and there the term highly sensitive person, but then empath is a more recent term that kind of takes a highly sensitive person. So someone who could feel a lot of feelings about the things that are going on around them. An empathic person almost takes that one step further. And like you said, it's not like you can help it. It's just built into you, where not only are you feeling and processing a lot of feelings about the things that are happening around you in your life, but you're actually feeling the energy, you're absorbing the energy. And so as an empath, there's a lot of energy work that you have to do to make sure that you can differentiate yourself from other people. So you might walk into a room and it's crowded and maybe there's tenseness to the room and you all of a sudden feel tense and weird and you're like, but I wasn't tense when I walked in. Like, but because you're an empath, you're kind of filtering it and absorbing all of the energy. And so that takes a lot of processing power and a lot of really having intuitive powers and reading under the lines and knowing like what's going on, where it's almost like we're a little psychic even, and all those are really good things. But as you were saying, like it can also kind of weigh on you. And so if you're as an empath, and that's why I became a coach, was really helping people, first of all, understand this is what an empath is. I'm not just maybe a highly sensitive person, or I'm actually somebody who absorbs the energy around me. And that's a good thing. But also, if I don't take care of myself and if I don't understand that about myself, that can really drain me and pull me down. So I also, similar to you, really didn't know. Growing up, I was told I was very sensitive. I was always very artistic. I was always very self-expressive, and I always felt a lot of things and felt like I needed to process a lot of things. But again, didn't know where that came from. Kind of felt, and this happens a lot with my empath clients, where you feel kind of alone and no one understands you. And then sometimes you even feel like you're the odd person and you're weird or different, because you don't know that those are actually really good things, but you just don't know how to leverage them for good in your life and to not sort of bring you down. And so I did some seeking. I went through high school and college, kind of, saying, okay, I know I'm this way. I don't know what it means. I think in my early 20s, so I really did some seeking because I still felt that way. Obviously, it wasn't like something I was going through as a teen. It was like really who I was, and I still wanted to understand, like, why am I so sensitive? Why am I this sort of, why do I have these intuitive feelings, and why can we nurture people? So when people just sit down next to us and start talking to us about their life, and they feel like we're good listeners, and it's just like, where does this come from? So I started doing some digging, and I did run across, highly sensitive, but then beyond that, finally in our society and with the times, the term empath had kind of come into more mainstream. And that's when I started saying, like looking at like as an empath, what those sort of challenges were, but also like what the superpowers were. And I identified with both of those things within that sort of empath persona. And that's when I finally, I still hadn't figured it out in my, early to mid 20s when I finally was like put a name on it. But at least I finally had an identity and I was like, okay, now I can move forward from here. And that's kind of what really kicked off my journey of finally finding who I was. So where it started.
No, and I'm grateful that we're talking about this, and I can't wait until we get into how to connect with empaths, even in when you're not one. Like, how do you actually connect with
Yeah.
them?
Yeah.
But one of the things I did want to share, I remember a few years back, I couldn't remember why this was the case, but I remember when people were very, very close to me, and when I felt like they could essentially speak to me however they wanted to, whether it was positive or negative, I took it.
Mm.
But I also felt like when it was time for me to speak up and to have that opportunity to talk about the things that maybe I wanted to discuss with them, whether it was positive or negative, they didn't take it.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I essentially was very sensitive, not because I didn't want to speak, but because I wasn't sure if what I said would be accepted by others.
Yeah.
And then I carried that same emotion through my adult life, through just my relationships with men and all these different things, and to the point where it was like, whoa, you got to figure this out. Like, this is affecting your relationships, your personal relationships, your business relationships, like everything. It was affecting it. And I would love to learn from you, what are some things that just people can really look out for them to know, okay, if I am an empath and I do feed off of
Yeah.
other people's emotions, what are some things that I can do to make sure that I'm not hurting myself in the process?
Yeah. And I love too that you have this podcast now and this voice and this platform, and that you went through that, but I think it brought you to this. And that's been, I know we talked about this part of your healing and your journey. That is just a
Yes.
success story. It's amazing. And I think what first came to mind when you told me that too is that so often, like we talked about earlier as an empath, before we talk about some of the signs, is that we feel like outsiders, and a lot of times, like we will talk to people and it's like they stare at us, like, like they don't get it. And it's because they're not, and I always say it's really important for an empath to find their tribe, their fellow tribe members. So if you were maybe even speaking with fellow empaths, you and I, like we would have hit it off and I would be like, oh, tell me. Like we just go 100 feet deep in our conversation immediately. But for people who don't think that way and feel that way, and they don't understand why you would say those things, and I think probably you were running up against that, and so I would say initially from that, I think that's a really good call out, in that first of all, identifying the people in your life who are fellow maybe empaths, or at least want to understand how empaths, I know we'll talk about understanding empaths and work later on, and those who aren't. And then knowing like, okay, well, I might not get what I need from those people. And being able to differentiate that, and then not seek things from those people that they can't give you. As an empath, you might need reassurance from another fellow empath. So go to that person versus this other person who might not. Otherwise, what happens then is we internalize it and we think, oh, well, I'm bad, or I'm speaking too much, or like, I just never say the right thing, whatever it might have been in those relationships or those, situations, and we are internalizing it. So I think one of the first things I'd say is, recognizing yourself as an empath with these abilities, with these challenges. And then if somebody isn't like you, not internalizing or blaming yourself for that, right? Just saying, okay, they're in a different place than I am, and I'm going to find people who are like me. You can still coexist, obviously, we all do, but it's just not taking it personally. And then also, a big part of being an empath is that energy, right? And so the energy that you spend dealing with those other people, or trying to find, or processing all your feelings and all those, sensitivities and that energy coming into your space when you go out for a walk or to work or you're at home or with your family. So really protecting your energy. And that goes for the people who are negative, making sure like I can put up a little bit of, whether you call it a bubble or you call it a shield, but not letting as much as possible other people's energy and mixing in with yours, or at least understanding where theirs begins and yours ends. And again, if you're not understanding that you are a different sort of vibe or frequency or place in these other people, then it's really easy to get all mixed up and think it's all you when it's not. So it's kind of setting those boundaries. And again, seeing that, yes, you're different and apart in a good way. And by the way, I don't need to let that person, or their energy into my space. And also just that I think as an empath too, we don't do well with shallow, we don't do well with fake, we don't do well with, all of those types of situations, social situations or people, those sorts of things, and not beating ourselves up that those things don't really call to us, or that we don't do well with those things. Like stick to things that make you feel good, and when you do have to go into those situations or those circumstances, maybe it's at work or whatever, then just again, protect yourself. Say, I know I'm going into a space where I might not be the best, person to be in it, but I know I can still stand in who I am and let all those people be who they are in the situation. So those are a few ways I would say, you can really kind of start protecting yourself, protecting your energy, accepting your identity, accepting your superpowers, finding your tribe. Those are some really key things that I work with my clients on when they have this question of like, how do I differentiate myself from everyone else and not feel like it's me, it's all me, and I'm beating myself up about it. So.
And you know what? There's so many different things that came to my mind. And the first one was when you talked about where your energy begins or where your energy starts and someone else's ends. And I remember when I was in high school, or maybe not even high school, maybe elementary school, and I would have friends. And I remember my mom, she used to always say, like, who am I talking to right now? Like, am I talking to you or I'm talking to your friend? Because it got
Mm-hmm.
to the point where I would talk like them, laugh like them. Like it was almost as if we were the same person. And I didn't know how to essentially differentiate myself from them and create like my own identity. It was almost as if my identity was created based on who I was around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I used to be like that too, and because you had no other way of knowing how to be or to stand on, like because you're absorbing the energy and you're like, you're mirroring it back. And that
Yes.
is a good thing as an empath in order to connect with people and meet them where they are. But when we become that too, that's not a good thing. When we lose ourselves, hard part.
And
That's
that's
what
what was
mom was like,
happening.
"This is 5 year." Like,
Yes, that's what was happening. And she wasn't the only person that told me that. Even when I was, my partner and I, we've been together for like 4 years now. When we first started dating, he was like, am I talking to you or your mother? So it continued to happen as an adult. And I'm like, oh my gosh,
yeah,
how do I work through this?
yeah,
And to be honest with you, it wasn't until, like I said, it wasn't really until the podcast where I actually found my voice and found my community. Because prior to this, I was still operating in that whoever I'm around, that's who I'm going to
yeah.
essentially mirror. And I'm like, no, this is not okay.
Yeah, yeah. It's like you were trying to relate to them, but it was going too far. It's like now
Yes.
you can still relate to them, but you're you in that. So which is
Yes.
a great thing. So amazing.
Yes. So with the clients that you do work with, once they actually figure out, like they have the awareness of it and they know that this is happening,
Yeah.
how are you essentially helping them set those boundaries and expectations, but also ensuring that they're using, I like to say their superpowers, but using those powers for good?
Yeah. Yeah.
What does that look like?
Yeah. So first, like you said, we're identifying this is who you are, and you are different, and so you have a different set of characteristics and strengths. Then looking at where in your life, what are those strengths, and where in your life can you leverage and use them? And inevitably, just like the story you just had, things start popping out like, oh, I haven't been using that strength, your voice, or your ability to connect with people. You were just going so far because you didn't have a boundary there. Or maybe, somebody it happens all the time, especially working moms, and, they're over giving, like way over giving in all parts of their life. And then that's when we start talking about, hey, to have all these superpowers, you need your energy. You need to protect your energy. If you're giving it away or letting it be stolen from you, then you're going to have nothing left to be your best for all of these people who you love and you care about, or your work, etc. So it's almost becomes this sort of like, out of these abilities and these challenges, right? Then comes out these sorts of like ways, and they're all almost ways of setting boundaries. And I think as an empath, I feel like, at least for me, that theme has come up so much in my life, like just being able to set boundaries in all these different flavors of ways, if you will. And it can be tough, except that when you start also tying it back to, hey, this is how you're your best in your life for all those people, again, for your work and your kids and your spouse, etc. And also you tie in self-love, right? A lot of people have, again, because we've lost ourselves, or we haven't found our tribe or our voice, we don't know who we are. We are hard on ourselves. We beat ourselves up, right? And there's that self-love piece that needs to be there too. And again, celebrating and like going back to doing things that you love doing, that bring you joy, that bring you energy. So if you start tying that in, what we see is what I see, and for me too, it becomes easier to then start setting those boundaries, to stop the overworking, to, all of these different challenges, to stop absorbing others because others' negative energy, etc., because it's not good for you and the rest of the people around you. So it's really this sort of process that you go through, and it all kind of ties together to help people unravel it. And it really is an unraveling. It's like, because we're in this sort of tangled, like, we've been having to be someone else for so long, for our work, for society, for our families, for whatever. We're in this like sort of knot. And I really feel like I help people untangle it. And then we sort of say, okay, well then, now that you kind of know all these things, you know your powers, you know where your challenges are, you know where you need to set boundaries or protect your energy. What do you want your life to look like now? Like, who are you? And it's almost like a returning to like you found your voice with your podcast. Like, I don't know if this was something you wanted to do forever, or if it just came to you because it was, a way for you to heal, and it just became this, great, and now you've run with it, right? But like, what are the things that can bring what you need in your life to you, and let's make your life look like that, versus what you've been doing hasn't been working, so trying to help them really rebuild their lives with that better perspective and platform and foundation.
Yeah, no, I can definitely relate to that because for me too, I didn't have a voice for so long. And I started off with interviews because I'm like, I'm still a very great listener. So I'm like, let me just focus on my listening skills. And then I realized that, oh my gosh, I also don't want to feel like I'm hiding behind my podcast either, because
Yeah.
that's not good either. So I'm like, how can I ensure that I also have a voice in this? And
Yeah.
now I'm looking at doing other things to just so people can find me more relatable, and they, know that I do more outside of just the show and things like that. So it's
Yeah.
really allowed me to carve out pieces that I probably would have never put together and figure out how I'm going to work them out for me, which I certainly appreciate. And I appreciate the work that you do because honestly, it's so needed. Like, I don't think people really know the impact it can have on your mindset and your body, and like physically cause you to become ill when you're not using your talents in the right way. So I
Exactly.
appreciate you for that.
Yeah. And by you doing what you're doing, and me, and both as empaths, and like, then we're showing others that, like, we're lights for others. We're like, you don't have to live like that. Like, you can, have a voice, you can be who you are. And there's others like you who want to hear what you have to say. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's the best part of it too.
Yeah, I was actually talking to a client that I worked with a few months back. And I remember when I started working with her, she was so excited to build an online business. But then when we actually got to creating the content and her speaking and
Mm.
her showing up for herself online, she just couldn't do it. And
Yeah.
she decided, she was just like, I don't think this is for me. And then she reached out to me a couple of days ago and she was like, oh my gosh, I started working on like my limiting beliefs in this area and really figuring out like why I have a hard time showing up and finding my voice. And she's like, by me consistently doing it every day, I'm now learning so much about myself and what I'm actually like excited to talk about. And I just thought that was so
Yeah.
great because that's where we start.
True. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't give up. It's in there. Like just, yeah, don't give up on yourself.
Just stay the course.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wanted us to just transition into, how to really manage a highly sensitive, whether you are a business owner and you're working
Mhm.
with employees or you're the business owner and you're the empath and you're now bringing on employees. Like, what does that look like? I know for me, I'm really big on energy.
Mhm.
So I do have to make sure that we vibe before we
Mhm.
do anything,
Yeah.
because if not, that's an energy suck for me. And then it requires more of my time and attention trying to figure out how to get you out of my life,
Yeah.
to be honest with
They
you.
maneuver, they bring it around. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I could completely yeah, when I had, a team in my corporate world, whenever I was able to interview someone, that energy for me was always of course, there are those skills that, that we all need to have as well, but yes, that's part of it, right? Like, what's the feeling? And also, like, the culture that whether, like, you're running your own business or, like, the group that I was in, what we were trying to accomplish, and trying to, yeah, gauge, a lot of the stuff too you can train people on, right? But it's like if you don't have the right persona, the right frequency, if you're not on that, then you're never going to connect and you're never going to be able to. Yeah. So in I don't think you always need if you're an empath, I don't think you necessarily need everyone on your team to be an empath as well. And I say that also to the big corporate world, by the way, because you need a mix of everybody. That is probably the best. You can all learn from each other. There's, I think, sadly, especially at least in the corporate world, for so long there was this sort of lean toward these really, loud, outspoken, kind of A-type people who were just always, the loudest and the wanted to be in the front and everything. And then people such as myself, as an empath, there's quieter, maybe that wasn't my approach. It just meant, oh, well, I was weaker or I couldn't stand up for myself. When really I was like, no, I have a lot to bring to the table too. Like, that person cannot get people to collaborate. He's just going to get people to fight, like, so, like, we all have something to bring to the table. And so I love that you ask about managing highly sensitive or empathic people, because we do have, as you know too, specific things that either can trigger us or that we need to have a positive work environment. And I think, one of those things is the energy. Is there a good feeling? Do you feel supported? Maybe your boss might not be an empath, or, but you at least, feel respected. I think that's a big thing when you're out there. Can you respect each other? But I also think, as an empath and a highly sensitive, we're very self-aware. We're really hard on ourselves. So we're going to be the ones who find the mistakes first of our work. Like, you don't need to, like, be mean or ball us out or call us out or anything. Like, we're going to bring it to you. Like, we're very self-aware of that. We also, we are processing a lot of information, a lot of energy, as we were saying. And so springing something on us last minute and asking us to put a report together for tomorrow morning, or like, yeah, I need like a list of blah, blah, blah is like the worst thing in the world. That's just going to cause, someone like us or someone like me to just stress and also kind of just shut down, right? And not be able to perform and deliver. So understanding that as you as a boss or a manager might be that way, that person that you're working with might not be. And so try to help them manage their stress and their work by thinking ahead and helping them plan. Like, that's a really good thing. Yeah. Also, I would say use them for, leading your teams. As you said earlier, everyone, you're a really good listener. Like, we're such good listeners. We are really good collaborators. We can really help in negotiations, like help everybody feel like they're winning or they're getting something out of it. And the way we do that is we listen to everybody and we make everybody feel seen and heard. And that's just because we have big hearts, And we can't help it, by the way. So put those people in those positions, whether it's your, collaborating roles, it's your being mentors to your younger, the younger people on your team or the peers on your team. Put them in those situations to help you, especially if that's not a strength that you might have yourself or you don't have time for that. And I'd also just add to, like, again, if you're not an empath yourself or a highly sensitive person, but you need to know maybe what's going on culture-wise within your company or within the team. Like, how are people feeling? Like, what's the sense out there? Use people like you and I to help, provide that information, because we're going to be able to listen to what's really going on. People are going to want to talk to us. And then we're going to be able to then relay back, like, hey, from the heartfelt, the heart-centered space, like, this is what's going on. People are burnt out because of, XYZ is going on, or somebody isn't listening to the schedule, et cetera, whatever line of work you might be in. But just use them or us as your eyes and ears into what's going on and in their intuition that we have there as well. So I'd say those are some, key areas that, managing, and also the energy piece. I know we already talked about it in this culture and day and age. And I literally just stepped away from full time. I know, as you know, just over a year ago, the meeting culture that we're in, especially being remote and after COVID and everybody's working, we can't help it maybe, but there would be just back-to-back meetings 5 days a week, 8 to 6 every day. And as an empath, I was just completely drained and I couldn't even see straight after a while. So for my team, I instituted a half day in the middle of the week where I blocked out the calendar and I let both them know that they were not, unless there was a huge emergency, they were not required to do any work. This was their time that they could, just have a coffee in the morning, or they could have some downtime. But also I let everyone else know, like, this is when my team needs to just sit and think. Right. And also I needed it. So it's like giving an empath, a highly sensitive person, that space to, like, re-energize and recharge their batteries is also really important when you're managing that. So.
Oh my gosh. This is so accurate. Like, it's funny that you're mentioning this too, because I actually started working with a newer company recently. And one of the things that I really enjoy was the opportunity to speak. I think this is so important for me. I'm like, okay, let me actually talk here. And one of the things that I talked about with this particular company was we have way too many meetings.
Yeah.
Like, if you want me to get the work done,
yeah,
I can't get the work done and be on a call about what did I do for the work when you haven't given me enough time to actually get the work done. So if you want to meet at 9 to talk, but you want me to start at 9, there's nothing I can say at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
That will be beneficial for you, for me, or for anyone on this call. So I'm learning even myself through these experiences of, like, okay, what can I do to ensure I'm letting people know where I stand?
Yes.
So they know how to treat me in this sense too. I was working with someone else and they're like, hey, can we meet from 8:30 to 9:30? Well, I don't technically support you until 9 o'clock. No, you can't.
Yeah.
Because that's my time. And I'm like, from 7:30 to 8:30, I'm with my trainer. I'm not gonna stop the things that make me feel good about me to come to a meeting 30 minutes early when we probably could get done what we need to get done in actually 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's just, I love that you're mentioning this, because I think it's so important, especially for business owners who maybe you have a small but mighty team and you're like getting super frustrated because you're like, nothing's really going right or going well, or people are not doing the work. And it's like, well, are you actually giving them the mental capacity to think through it, make strategic decisions? But are you also ensuring that you're not booking so many meetings where they don't have time to do any work?
Yes.
I love that you're bringing this up. This is powerful.
Well, and you made a really good point too. And it's something that I do encourage my clients, once they learn and discover and embrace what their gifts are, is that it is also our job, as we begin to have the courage, like you just mentioned, to say how people need to treat, how we need to be treated. And that goes for the workplace too. And, when I didn't know enough and I wasn't courageous enough in the first like 2/3 of my career to be able to be like, hey, I'm an empath. And like, I got to, but the last third, I was like, I'm an empath. I am here. Like, use me, this is, and like we just mentioned, like blocking the timeout. Like I was like, I'm not asking permission. We're going to do this. Like, and of course, but it's because when you start owning it, and like you said, it's on us too, to not just expect people to just assume who we are, especially if, as we're talking about, we're being managed, or, we're working for a company or a person who is not like us, so we need to teach them how to treat us. Goes for our families too, and our spouses, and our, anybody else in our life as well. Right. So not just our work, but such a good point.
Absolutely. Well, this has been such an amazing topic. I'm super grateful that we had an opportunity to share. And without further ado, could you just share with us, so anyone was looking to get a hold of you, what does that process look like? What type of, environment can they expect to be in with you? I would love to know that.
Sure. Yeah. So my website, that's usually where I send everyone to. I am on social, as I know we met there, but it's easy. It's creativegirlhelpingtheworld.com. So again, I'm a creative girl. It's the name of my company, and helping the world. So if you go there, you can, see a little bit about what I do, what I'm about as a coach, and then also contact me that way. I do currently, have one-on-one clients. I do a 3-month program where we work through all the things that you and I have just been talking about together, and help really somebody remap their life, knowing all of this as they embrace it. But I'm actually also on social, and I'll keep everyone posted on social. If they follow me, just Melissa O'Connell. If you find me on Facebook or Instagram, I'm there. I'm going to be launching a digital course soon. So taking all the things that I do in my 12-week program, but putting them into a digital course. So for those who are not, don't have the time or aren't ready to do the one-on-one, they'll be able to access that. And I have a few freebies coming out. So be on the lookout for that if anybody's interested. But yeah, trying to just reach people. And then I'm doing all of this, and thank you, VR, for having me on and just helping me get my message out and help people. I know we're both trying to help people here, and so love doing this stuff. And, however we can help people is my goal. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being a part of the Holistic Sister Circle. Until next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Queen, thank you so much for tuning in. It truly warms our heart that you're taking the time out of your day to connect with us. If you'd like to connect with our guests further, you can find their information located in the description section of this episode. And if you found this episode helpful, share with another queen, and don't forget to connect with the Holistic Sister Circle on Instagram and Facebook. And until next week, stay blessed. Mwah.